It's magic. The one and only Vince D'Addario is with us now. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Whew, been waiting all day, let me tell you.
I bet you have. And I mean,
It's been a
I hope
day.
you're ready for rapid fire since you were brought specifically here for
I
rapid
know.
fire. So
It's it's kind of exciting to be brought in just for rapid
I
fire.
know it's kind
But
of like the closer coming in out of the bullpen. You need like
ooh,
entrance music or something.
need like an
So
Enter Sandman
yeah,
action. Need
there
some
you go.
yeah.
Timmy trumpets or like something. I don't know.
Oh, is that the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
I like that one.
All right. Well, we finally got our first transfer portal, first since the blue gold game, anyway. Transfer portal news for Notre Dame today. Micah Bell, rising
Yeah.
sophomore corner, announced that he is entering the portal. Scale of 1 to 10. How significant is this, Vince, for Notre Dame?
So I want to answer this two ways.
Okay.
For 2024, it's like a 3 or a 4. For 2025, I feel like it's a 7 or 8.
Okay.
Because, Micah Bell wasn't going to start this year. Jordan Clark was brought in to be the nickel. He's going to be the nickel, 90% of the time, right? And the whole point was that Micah Bell was going to be his understudy and kind of train him up so that he'd be ready to take over so they wouldn't have to go back to the transfer portal next year. And Micah Bell would just assume that position and maybe have 2 or 3 years of eligibility left over, ready to roll. Now you've got to have a new plan for the nickel moving forward, right? So it doesn't really affect this year specifically, but I feel like it affects next year and beyond a little bit more. It surprised me. I felt like, talking to Brian and talking to some other people, it felt like they kind of had a plan all set up with how the nickel position was going to look this year moving forward. And now that just kind of got blown up.
And this wasn't one of the names that was on my radar that I thought was
No,
probably coming. Like this
no.
one specific, because especially like when you look at Clarence Lewis announcing he was leaving a couple of weeks ago, it felt like Micah Bell probably, sort of like his presence, like what you're talking about with the nickel, some different things like that. Like it felt like that had something to do with it. Clarence Lewis going to go to Syracuse. Probably he'll get more playing time at Syracuse than
Sure.
he's going to have here. Like in terms of a long-term play for Clarence, that's another story. But long-term play for Clarence Lewis still feels like, does he really have an NFL future? That kind of thing. But the nickel specifically, I think the recent developments there might have had something to do with that as well in terms of Micah Bell. And I'll play you this snippet. Marcus Freeman, after the blue gold game Saturday, was asked about the young linebackers and kind of that linebacker room going forward. Here's part of what he said, or to that bigger conversation, but specific to Jaden Osbury.
Osbury would be able to say, okay, he's helping us at linebacker, but we got to find ways to not take him off the field. So we moved him to nickel halfway through spring. And so that's a reflection of his athleticism, his versatility.
So you moved Jaden Osbury to nickel halfway through spring, and some of the unintended consequences, I think, impacted what you were talking about in terms of the future for Micah Bell. I rate this a lot higher for me. I put it at a 9 simply because, the numbers at this position right now, they were already thin even before Micah Bell announced he was going to leave, and now they're even thinner. So currently they're down to 4 scholarship cornerbacks on the roster. One of them, their best one, Benjamin Morrison, has a shoulder injury. Yeah, he's literally walking. He's still in an immobilizer sling, which means he's not moving that shoulder at all, which means he is still in the recovery phase.
Yeah.
Like, he's not even to the rehab phase yet. He is in the recovery phase. So, we have no idea what Benjamin Morris's status is going to be for training camp, let alone the season. So as of right now, you're down to Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray, Chance Tucker in terms of the healthy scholarship cornerbacks right now. Now you do have Carson Hobbs and Leonard Moore coming in this summer. Hobbs had a thumb surgery fairly recently that he's rehabbing from. You would hope that a thumb is not going to, severely limit him by the time training camp gets here. And of course, you mentioned Jordan Clark as well, but the numbers are very thin right now. And that's why I put this at a 9, especially, again, not, maybe Notre Dame has an idea of, what
Right.
Benjamin Morrison's actual hopeful return date is. I'm still putting that, like, if they get him back by training camp, just based on, shoulder experiences and all that kind of stuff that that I know that I had when I had
I was
my
gonna
shoulder
say,
done. We
yeah.
don't, like, we still don't know exactly what the Benjamin Morrison, injury was and what the return date is, but corner was already, to me, a big priority in the transfer portal. They had that Rice cornerback, Trayshawn DeVones, I believe his name is.
Right.
He came in
Yep.
last week. I think they're going to have to bring in it, try to get at least 2 corners in the portal now.
Yeah, one felt like a need 24 hours ago, and now you're not wrong. I mean, he's part of that cornerback depth, and he was playing some corner last on Saturday, and you're probably right. I'm probably underselling how important this is from a depth standpoint. I was just thinking from a nickel standpoint. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But from a corner standpoint, thank goodness they've got 2 corners coming in. They're going to be true freshmen. But how much do you really want to put on those 2 freshmen? I mean,
well, exactly. Like,
know.
I feel confident about the front end guys. No problem. Again, like Benjamin Morrison, my only, and I think anyone would probably agree with it, the only thing you're not confident in Benjamin Morrison, we don't know when he's going to be back. We don't know what his recovery is going to look like. And I think you're kind of like if you're relying right now on Benjamin Morrison being ready for Texas A&M, that seems to me like it's, based on, recovering from a shoulder surgery and, being, it's one thing just to recover from it and have, your range of motion and some kind of strength, but it's another thing when you throw football into the mix,
Sure.
The ability to, confidently raise your arm up and swat a pass away and,
fall on it.
You're going to fall on it and not re-injure it. Yeah, that's exactly
Sure.
right. There's a lot that's going to go with that. So I'm just, again, if the front end guys stay healthy, that's great, but you're still going to have to rotate at time, just to give guys a breather from time to time. And the depth right now is just dramatically thin.
You need 4. Like, you absolutely 100% need 4 corners that are going to play, right? You hope that you've got 3 for sure. Now, Chance Tucker, is he going to be that 4th? Or are you going to get somebody from the portal to be that 4th? Like, who's going to be the 4th? I think that's a question mark, right, moving forward. And then from the nickel position, I guess Jaden Ausberry now is your backup nickel. So it makes you feel a little bit better about some things.
Yeah.
But still, the depth is an issue. I guess the last 2 years, Notre Dame has been very, very lucky, or if you want to call it, the recruiting's been really good, right? So Benjamin Morrison as a freshman, really freaking good. Christian Gray as a freshman, really freaking good. Is third time a charm? Like, are you hoping to cash in on a really good freshman again?
Right.
That's
I mean, it could happen, but it's still an unknown right now because all these guys, no matter what their ratings are, everyone, as we've seen with other guys on the roster at different positions, it's not everyone makes that transition and is ready to go right away. It's a lot to bank on a freshman as good as any of them might be walking in the door, that they're going to be able to jump out there and go right away and significantly contribute on day one.
100%.
Because like even Benjamin Morrison took him a little time,
before he was inserted in. Yeah.
Before it really came during his freshman season. So I'll be really curious to see what and I know a lot of people are already like counting scholarships and stuff like that. As we've talked about before, like, this is not the scholarship that you want to count. It's like, oh, we're one step closer to 85. That's going to take care of itself ultimately. There's some other pieces that I think that are going to matter more about getting to 85, because they've got to go out and add at least 1, if not 2 corners now at this position, plus a punter that we know that they're going to bring in.
Because I think we talked about it yesterday. I said I think 6-ish guys are going to, not be part of the roster moving forward. Yeah. I still think 6 plus 1 are not others. Roster. You know what I mean? Like, I was not counting on a Micah Bell type to be leaving. So
exactly. Now, another Micah Freshman receiver Micah Gilbert capped a good spring with a big blue gold game, pair of touchdown catches in the blue gold game for Micah Gilbert. Here's what Marcus Freeman had to say about him after Saturday's game.
Surprised one bit. I mean, he's been from summer camp, he's been a guy that has made plays. And this is when we evaluate him last year into spring, the start of spring. Micah Gilbert's a really good football player, and he's added a great skill set to that room at a young age. And he's a hard worker, doesn't talk a lot. You know, he just goes out to work. And I saw his parents last night at the parent dinner and just said he's a pleasure to coach. And he's one of those guys that, you know, you just love being around because he's a yes or no sir guy and just works. And what you're seeing is a reflection of that work he's putting in.
So, Vince, what kind of impact do you expect Micah Gilbert to have as a freshman this season?
I think he's got every opportunity to make it into the rotation, right? And we've heard that rotation is going to be about 6.
Correct.
It's funny how quick you get to 6 when you start counting up the wide receivers, right?
I know.
That has not been the case in the past. But before it was like hard to find 3 starters. But now that 6 fills up quick. But I think he has every opportunity to crack that 6. And if that's the case, you know, he'll make his contributions and he'll, you know, have big catches here and there. And I don't think he's going to start, but I think he has an opportunity to play a decent amount. The best part about this is you don't need Micah Gilbert. At least I don't think they need Micah Gilbert. He's an epiphany. Like, he's extra credit. You know what I mean? Like, if he's in the rotation, that's extra. That's awesome. That's you know, something great. I think they're in a great spot with their wide receivers where they don't need him to contribute, but I think he will.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you look, you know, like Chris Mitchell is obviously going to be there. We still haven't seen Bo Collins yet, but
Right.
I think we all expect that he's going to be in
Right.
the mix. And then you've got Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison. So that gets you to 4 right there. So then you go beyond those guys and you've got guys like the freshmen. Well, KK Smith, you know, like obviously he's a sophomore.
He's a redshirt freshman. But yeah.
Redshirt freshman. But you got KK Smith, you've got Micah Gilbert, you've got Cam Williams. You know, I still don't know like what to expect of Jaden Harrison as a contributor, as a receiver. I still think he's going to be mostly a special teams guy. But then obviously you got Deion Colsey and Jaden Thomas, you know. So it's like there are going to be 4 guys, I think, who are really going to be vying for how that shapes up during training camp, especially since you didn't have Bo Collins in practice
Right.
with you, you know, this spring. And I think that how Jaden Greathouse, like what impact he has, not in the slot, because you got, of course, he and Faison there in the slot, but what impact Greathouse has as an outside receiver is probably going to go a long way toward determining like where
Sure.
those freshmen do fit in, you know. But
Yep.
I mean, I think if you look at projections, like Jaden Greathouse had 18 catches and a little over 260 yards last year. So if you look at just straight up production, like if Micah Gilbert is somewhere around there this year when it's all said and done, I think that's a pretty solid season for a freshman when you've got all those other guys, when you look at the depth of this receiver room that you didn't have a year ago.
Yeah, I'm counting it up right now. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9-ish wide receivers who I could make an argument should be in the top 6. Like, Notre Dame has not been in this position in a very, very long time, right? And it's like I said, it's a great problem to have. I mean, I could probably come up with the 6 depending on how you're doing stuff, but you get to 6 very quickly. And I think Micah Gilbert's going to make a big play here or there. I think he's going to make a game-changing catch or a big first down, you know, that kind of deal. I just don't anticipate him being, you know, making an impact as a starter, but I see him making an impact as a rotation guy.
Right. Exactly. And like his opportunities could you know, and like what it looks like, who knows, but his opportunities could come like in those MAC games. That would probably be his first opportunity, you know, really, whether it's Northern Illinois or Miami, Ohio. And I know people have said, well, you know, don't overlook Miami, Ohio. They won the MAC last year and all that kind of, but like those, you would think that those would be some of his first opportunities to sort of get out there on the field and then sort of see where it goes from there.
Yeah. Yeah. He's going to make plays. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's just a very, very deep room.
Exactly. Fill in the blank. Saturday's blue gold game was the most blank blue gold game you can remember.
Positively competitive. Because there's been blue gold games that were competitive and low scoring, but that wasn't necessarily a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was a good thing. I think you saw plays made by the defense. I think you saw plays made by the offense. I think, you saw the athleticism of these guys. Like, there was a lot of positives to take away from the blue gold game with very few negatives, to be honest with you, very few negatives. And the positives greatly outweighed the negatives, and a bunch of touchdowns were scored. So that was fun to watch, obviously. And
more than we predicted, right?
100%. And look, the defense was in a base defense. We were talking to one of the defensive players' parents before the game, and basically said they've got like 6 calls, like total defensively. So you anticipate that touchdowns are going to be scored when you hear stuff like that. It makes perfect sense in a blue gold game.
Very vanilla, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very vanilla. But defense still made plays when they needed to make plays, right? I mean, so I thought it was very positive, and it was competitive from start to finish. So teams were evenly matched. Touchdowns were scored. Came down to the last drive. Positively competitive.
Yeah, it's interesting you use competitive. I used another C word. Compelling was my word.
I like that.
I thought it was one of the more compelling blue gold games that really we've ever seen. And I think the biggest reason why is still the 3 quarterbacks who were out there.
Oh, sure.
They all played well. It wasn't like last year where Hartman played, really a pretty good game, and we were excited to see Sam Hartman, but Tyler Buckner really did not have a good game at all out there. But because of the fact and the way they use those 3 quarterbacks with Carr going back and forth between the 2 teams, and Jelly obviously sticking with the blue, Minchie with the gold, like all 3 of them were factors in the game. And the fact that it was a competitive game until the end. And then Jelly, made the throw to Mitchell. Minchie made some plays with his legs, and CJ Carr was, he was just good out there. Hit a couple throws that kind of made everybody salivate a little bit. Didn't show any fatal flaws, so there was no real negative to come out of it. People do still, I think, overlook the fact that he very easily could have been intercepted by Christian Gray. And I would be interested to see how we were talking differently about CJ Carr had Gray, intercepted that ball. But it was just compelling because of those 3 and the fact that they all played well and that it was a close competitive game till the end. Just a very compelling game and not a stinker like a lot of blue gold games turn out to be.
Well, I mean, look, this is the best blue gold game from a quarterback standpoint that there's been in a long time, right? Yeah. I mean, I can't even remember back far enough to, when it's been this compelling, to use your word, from a quarterback standpoint. I mean, and somebody said, when Malik and Kaiser were here, does anybody remember the spring game from 2015? Kaiser was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Right. And then when Malik got hurt, everybody's like, "Oh crap!" Like, we're in trouble.
And I'm trying to remember in 2016, Malik was obviously, now he was ready to go by the 2016. By the time that season started, I can't remember if he was playing in the spring game, in 2016 or not.
Think so. And then it was a quarterback competition. And then they eventually gave it to Kaiser, obviously. Right. I assume they did.
They didn't give it to Kaiser, remember, because they went into the 2016 season with both of them were going to be the quarterback.
That's right.
That was the first nail in Brian Kelly's coffin in 2016, is he was trying to keep his word to Malik because he told Malik he was going to be the guy when he came back. But obviously, when Malik was out for the rest of the 2015 season, Kaiser took off.
Sure.
But then he went into 2016 trying to play both sides, and it was just a total disaster when he was trying to play both of them out there.
Beginning of the end.
Yeah.
They got blocked most of that out for a good reason.
I know. Seriously, I think we all did. I mean, that 2016 season was one to block out from basically from the time it started. You know?
It was
Like,
awful. Because isn't that the season that started with the rain delay and that whole thing? Was that 2016?
No, that was 2011 actually. The South
that long
Florida
ago.
game that you're thinking of. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was 2011 anyway, or was it even
Fair
farther
enough.
back than that? I don't know, man. It's
Whatever.
Like,
it is what it is. But you're right.
I mean, it was the Texas game, and they lost to Texas. All that different stuff.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. All of it.
Yeah. Well, or did they beat Texas? They obviously
I just pulled it up. They lost to Texas in double overtime.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Thinking. And then
at Texas, and then beat Nevada at home.
Yeah.
Lost to Michigan State. Lost to Duke.
But I think wasn't that the year that it took them until like the middle of the season before they finally got a sack, and all that stuff?
It was awful. I mean, they just got even their wins were close. Like
it was bad.
I mean, they only beat Miami by 3 at home. That they lost to Navy by a point.
Yep.
Like he's just ugly.
Very ugly. Okay, Vince, fill in the blank. It is blank that NBC is going to put heart rate monitors on the parents of athletes competing at the Summer Olympics in Paris, and they're going to display those heart rate monitor numbers on the TV screen.
This is a terrible idea. This is a terrible idea. They're going to probably live stream somebody's heart attack is what's going to end up happening. Like this is awful because look, I'm the parent of an athlete. You're a parent of an athlete. I guarantee my heart rate is like, and I'm not just saying from like the suspense of it, like I'm out of shape. And so my heart rate would be a disaster to begin with. And
then what's your heart rate? What's your normal heart rate going to be?
Right. Let alone watching my kid
walking around with like Vince is like sitting on the couch with an 80,
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible idea. Something bad is going to happen, and they're going to have it plastered all over. Terrible idea.
I've gone back and forth on this. Like, do I like it? Do I think it's like? Do you remember, like 2 or 3 Olympics ago, the gymnasts and the parents of the gymnasts, and show them, and they'd be like bobbing and weaving, in their chair, moving around to all of her moves and all that different kind of stuff. I would just imagine that those two, like their heart rates were just through the roof. And I guess that what's your heart rate right now? Oh, 71. That's actually not bad. We're sitting here. You're not completely inactive because you're having a conversation. So that probably, pumps it up.
I had to look because I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Like as much, because I'm anti continual cuts to the crowd, to the parents of athletes to begin with. Olympics, maybe I'm a little bit, like more sort of okay. I'm in line with that, but it's a little bit different. I don't know, but like, again, it's like how many times do you need to show the parents, like fidgeting around in their seats and doing all the moves and all that different kind of stuff. And like you said. Do we really need to know? Okay, it's like, okay, their heart rates go up because their kid is out there and they're nervous for their kid. So I don't know exactly, how interesting that's going to be.
I would decline if I was a parent. I'd be like, that you don't need to have that information.
Like, you obviously have to give them your permission to do it. But at the same time, some of those parents are probably going to be very eager to do it because how many times do they have a chance to be on national TV? Because how many times, is their kid going to have a chance to be an Olympian?
I mean, so I guess if you gave me the option, which obviously they're not doing, I'd rather be mic'd up than have a heart rate monitor on me.
Yeah.
Like that's what I.
And I tell you, like I was just thinking, I realize it's not a sport that most people watch on TV, but like we've got a local Olympian who is a wrestler, Sarah Hildebrandt, who's
I was just talking to her
bronze medalist at the last one. Yeah, that's right. He's the Penn wrestling coach out there, right, Harper?
Yeah, Coach Harper. I was like, man, you got another free trip to awesome place around the world. He's like,
serious.
It was funny. He goes, I hit the lottery with that one, didn't I? I was like, yeah, you did.
But like when Jesse wrestled he didn't wrestle for a long time, but he wrestled in middle school.
Yeah.
And that's when I was, because of my wrestling background, like that's when I was the most wound up was when he was wrestling and, like going through the whole thing. And I'd be, because like, and, like, I realize the decorum of parents has changed dramatically, like how you're supposed to act, like in the stands.
That's fair.
But like when we grew up at wrestling tournaments and stuff like that, it's like that's how you heard your coach, and slash, like because my dad had he wrestled in high school as well, so that's how you heard him. It's like you had to be loud, to get over the crowd and all that kind of. But it's like that's definitely when I was the most wound up, and that would be to me one of the ones where I would think that like that heart rate is going to be jacked up the most, because of that. But I don't know. I guess every sport's a little bit different. How
it'll be interesting to see because obviously it's your kid competing, right?
Right.
And you want your kid to be successful, and so your heart rate's going to go up. I mean, that's just going to happen. He's like NBC knows it, right? I mean,
yeah. And it's part of the show for them, obviously.
Absolutely.
Like, do you remember Michael Phelps's sister? Like they would always cut to Michael Phelps's mom and sister in this. Like those were the two. Like,
I remember his mom. For sure.
The sister was just all over the place all the time. So. I'm sure hers would have been through the roof. So Wrigley Field turns 110 years old today. What's the best Wrigley experience you've had in person?
So I went a bunch back when I had season tickets. And, I was at the playoffs, the whole Bartman thing and all that. But got to be honest with you, my first game was my best Wrigley experience. I'll never forget it. Walking out there. It was the 88 season. That was my first game. That was the season they put lights up for the first time.
I thought that was the season they put lights in there.
And I went with my uncle, who's a huge Cubs fan, lived in Chicago, and he never had sons of his own. So it's like he would kind of adopt us and take us to sporting events and all that.
So you were like, what, 7 or 8 years old?
7. Yeah, I was 7
years old. Wow.
Yep. So that's the one I remembered, just like walking out there and like how big it was. Because I played Little League, T-ball, and it's like, how little the T-ball. You walk into a Major League Baseball stadium, and it's like, this is amazing. Like, this is, So I remember there's a picture that I have someplace of me sitting in the stands with my uncle and at the first game and all that. Like, that's the one I remember. That's the best one for me.
Yeah.
I went nostalgic on you.
Yeah, you did. I've actually got a picture up here on the wall of, back when Jesse was smaller than me. That's been a few years. I think it was our first game, but we've got, it's got, like a picture. He's on my shoulders, and like the welcome to Wrigley Field, on the outside of Wrigley Field in the background and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and that would be my second one. Was the first game I took my son to.
Right.
And we got a ton of pictures of that, and he was like 4. You know what I mean? So yeah.
There was one like in terms of the most memorable, because I obviously didn't experience Wrigley Field. I was in my 30s the first time I experienced, but it was still a very cool experience, and it was actually like without like taking the whole family over there, because it's like somebody got us tickets, and I went with somebody that I used to work with and all that kind of stuff. But the two most memorable ones, first one, Jesse was actually with me for both of them. It's been 20 plus years ago, but Sammy Sosa and Bobby Abreu, the Cubs were playing the Phillies, and each of those guys hit 3 home runs in that game. So it was like, 3 home run game is rare enough, and especially like when Sammy Sosa does it. But 2, and like Abreu at the time was one of the more prolific, hitters in baseball still at that point. So they both had a 3 home run game, and it was like, a million runs. It was like a 15-14 game.
Oh, sure.
I don't even remember the score, but that was pretty cool. Like 2 guys to hit 3 home runs in the same game. And then the other one was Game 7 of the NLCS. It was the game after the Bartman game in 2003. Jesse and I went, and Kerry Wood was the starting pitcher for the Cubs in that game. And I don't know if you remember, but he hit a home run I think it was like his first at bat. And the place was just electric. The place went nuts.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think there was any chance the Cubs were going to lose that game when Kerry Wood hit that home run. But unfortunately, they did. And it took them, 13 more years before they finally would end their curse and get to the World Series. But those are the 2 most memorable things that I can remember happening at a Cubs game when I went to Wrigley.
Awesome.
So that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yep. All right. There is a new movie coming out called The Fall Guy. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. It's an adaptation of the 80s TV show about a Hollywood stuntman by the same name called The Fall Guy. I don't know if you're even old enough to remember The Fall Guy back in the 80s. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your interest in this movie?
It seems I saw a preview for it a couple of days ago, actually. I am admittedly a huge Emily Blunt fan. I think she's really good.
I am too.
She's
really
easy
like
in the eyes. I think she's a good actress. All of the above. And I like her husband too. He's obviously hilarious. I would go watch this. I will say my interest level is probably like a 5 or 6. Like, it's not like I'm going to be crushed if I don't make it to the theater. But if it's coming out and it's going to be, and I've got nothing going, like if I'm with my kid and we're at a soccer tournament or a football camp or something, and we're looking for something to do in the afternoon, this was something. If I was looking through the movies, I'd be like, you know what, let's go see that one. That one looks like, because I think it's like, it's not a rom-com, but there's definitely some comedic, points to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of movie I enjoy watching.
Yeah. So. I'm a big fan of the movie Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt movie. It's kind of a Groundhog Day, futuristic, like combination, like D-Day, like D-Day in the future kind of movie. It's like a fun movie. Emily, so that's like one of my favorite Emily Blunt movies. I've never been like a huge Gossling guy, but like, have you seen, like the clip from a couple weeks ago, the Beavis and Butthead on SNL?
Oh my goodness.
It's hilarious.
Yes. I was literally laughing out loud as I watched it. And it also just so happens that one of the two of them looks identical to a student here.
Oh, really?
Who I've had to deal with.
That's funny.
And it just makes it even funnier.
What hooked me though is like on the trailer that they've been showing for this movie. Mm-hmm. They use the Journey song "Any Way You Want It" like in there, which like is goes back to Caddyshack. They played "Any Way You Want It" at the end of Caddyshack. But that kind of hooked me, and I learned it's actually got a couple decent reviews. So I put this at a solid 6.5, 7. I'm more interested after seeing a couple reviews, and like I said, they hooked me with the Journey song, basically. So
whatever it takes.
I find myself interested. I just thought
is it coming out like now?
I want to say like maybe next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, something like that.
Odd time for a movie to come out, like in the middle.
I thought so too, and it's like we're getting into May, so at least if it comes out in May, that's typically a decent sign. But
true, I could, usually in the past, there's always been like Memorial Day weekend is like when some of the blockbusters like go out. I haven't heard like what's coming out that weekend, but maybe they should have pushed it a little bit. But
we always keep our eye out, and like it's tough, man. Movies over the last few years, it's just you don't know what you're gonna get.
I know.
So that's why we might have to sample this.
And I know you guys. I mean, the Stiers family. You guys are movie goers.
We are.
Yeah,
as much as possible. Much as possible. My wife is always looking. She's like, there are no movies out. It's like, well, it's March. They're never out in March.
I love going to the theater. I will see just about anything as an excuse to go to the theater,
get your popcorn,
get some popcorn, and I love going to the theater.
Yep.
There's just been nothing that has really floated my boat lately. So maybe this will do it.
I mean, literally, it's been what? Like almost 2 years since Top Gun Maverick? Has it been even longer? Like
that was so good. I've watched that multiple times at home, on streaming service.
It came on probably a couple months ago, even at this point, like on the satellite. And it's like, ooh, I saw that it was coming up. So I recorded it. So now I've got it like anytime, any way I want it, I can watch it.
Well done. Well done, sir.
I don't know though. I think we've talked about this before. They're talking about another Top Gun sequel because that one did so well, and I'm torn on whether I want that because I feel like there's nowhere to go but down on this. I
don't know if there's such thing as like a perfect second movie, perfect sequel,
especially almost 30 years apart.
This one's dang close, man, because they had Iceman, which obviously they're not going to have in the next one,
right?
You had the rooster goose story. Like it was perfect, man. Like it
I
was
feel like
about.
I feel like they're gonna have to go back to the well and like bring in, like see if they can get some of the original pilots to come back in and work some kind of storyline in, or if they're gonna do it. But
Man,
I think it's gonna be tough to top, man. They even come
the only
close.
part that was a stretch for me in the second movie was the fact that he's still like a captain or whatever, and never either retired, got pushed out, or moved up.
There's not typically, if you're not advancing in rank,
Right.
they push they push you out.
Correct.
Like everyone else is an admiral and he's still a captain. I did find that kind of hard to believe as well.
That was the hardest pill to swallow on the whole thing. But other than that, it was about as good of a storyline as you're going to come up with. You know what I mean? They even brought back the admiral's daughter for the love interest.
I know.
Like they did their homework on this, man.
Yep.
Like don't ruin it by doing another one.
And that was great cruise chemistry with Jennifer Connelly. Like it's like,
are they going to ruin that? Like
I know.
Because
like,
they were together.
What do they do with that storyline? Yeah, are they gonna, like insert some drama or I don't know, man.
And that was such a good relationship too. Like you don't want to mess that up.
I know.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I agree, but they're gonna try.
I know.
When a movie makes over $500 million.
And Tom Cruise is the king of the multiple movies.
Yep.
So.
All the Mission Impossible. And I think there's like another Mission Impossible that's supposed to be coming out maybe a year from now. Because we actually, because like we've never been like, like I've seen the original Mission Impossible and like maybe, I'll say this. I had seen the original and I know I saw the second one, but I hadn't really been like deep into the Mission Impossibles, even though there's like 7 of them or something like that now. But because of Top Gun Maverick, we went to see last summer the new, whatever that Mission Impossible, I can't remember if it was Fallout or what it was, but that was, part 1 of 2. There's another one coming here at some point.
I'm trying to look up like what movies are coming out for Memorial Day weekend, and I am not impressed.
Yeah.
So
something Marvel or DC, I'm sure.
Like the Garfield movie and King of the Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
Or Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
See, and I've never gotten into the new Planet of the Apes stuff either. I was
big
on the originals, but
I like the Charlton Heston ones were good. I mean, there was a really good. And then they started remaking them, and they started doing some different origin stories. I started watching one of these like we were on a trip, and I was in the hotel, and I'm watching a movie, and it was one of these Planet of the Apes movies, and I think it was like an origin type story, and I can't keep them all straight, man. Like there's been so many remakes.
I'm just not in on the CGI apes. It's just
I'm with you. I don't know.
They look too phony to me, even though they're supposed to look more realistic. I'm just not in on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here, Vince. Appreciate everybody else being here as well. We've got a mailbag show coming up tomorrow, and of course more IB Nation sports talk all week long. We will be here for you. Hit that like button before you leave, and of course subscribe, rate, review, play your podcast. Do it. Appreciate it. IB Nation sports talk.